Right. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Well, thanks for the invite, Matt.
Yeah, appreciate it. So, Gareth, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you and who you are and the work that you do?
Sure. So Gareth Hind, I'm a dad, a husband, a son, a friend, a lover of those lines you get in the lawn when you've just cut them. Love cutting the grass. A massive Disney fan.
What's your favourite Disney film?
I mean, there's so many. It's got to be Lion King.
Oh, really?
Love the Lion
Mine's
King.
Aladdin all day. I
Yeah.
love Aladdin. Yeah.
New or old?
Not the remake. No, the original. The original.
Quite like the new.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I guess I'm director of colleague experience and relations at First Bus.
Yeah.
So as a business, to give I guess a quick bit of context around the business itself, we've got 5,000 buses. We've got 13,000 colleagues, and we move 1 million journeys every day,
Wow.
moving people to. And this is kind of the societal piece of what we do, right? So we move people to medical appointments, to get them to school, to college, we get them to uni, we get them shopping, we get them to people they care for, friends, family. So it's this kind of societal, this idea of moving a nation, of moving society to get them from wherever that journey might be.
Wow, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, yeah. And it gives people that purpose, right? You know.
It is the bigger purpose, Matt, actually. And I think when I joined the business a couple of years ago, I joined a bus company. But actually what I've learned over the last 2 years is actually there is real purpose behind what we do. It is moving society. It's moving a nation. And without buses, actually, it's a very different world that we live in. So there is a much bigger purpose, and you see this in our colleagues and on our drivers, the advocacy for the bus, for the transport sector, for the pride that they have in actually getting people from A to B. It's quite spectacular, really.
Yeah. You involved was I reading you're involved with the B network up in Manchester?
Yeah, so so just a couple of weeks ago, actually, we launched our Rochdale operation, which is one of the franchises of the B network. So I was there last week, actually, and it's a fantastic depot, doing our bit in the B network. Great to see a full depot full of yellow buses.
Yeah.
But actually that again, that bigger piece behind the B network and the sort of transformative nature that that network's been on in Greater Manchester.
Yeah, just being nosy because I live in Manchester.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so I spotted it on the
I'm
local
in
news.
Northwich. I'm only half an hour south of Manchester. So.
Yeah, I'm South Manchester as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those are going to be neighbours, aren't we?
Yeah.
One
On
of
the
them
same road. So I'll straight in with the difficult questions. So I'm guessing you've got quite a, how would I describe it? Like a disparate workforce.
Absolutely.
There's people out and about. They're not in a central office, right? How do you do well-being for a population like that?
Well, it's certainly not easy. So you're absolutely right, Matt. We've got 13,000 colleagues, around about 9 to 10,000 of drivers, where you get a fixed period of time each day to engage with them, and outside of that, they're out on the bus, and they're off on their journeys. And we're also, from Aberdeen down to the bottom of Cornwall and left and right of the UK, including an operation over in Ireland. So, it is very much a disparate workforce. That's exactly how I describe it. I think it's about making wellbeing as accessible as possible, for everybody in their unique way that they may need it. So it's been smart and clever with the way that you engage with them, but it's also about being relevant.
Yeah.
And there's no point in pushing wellbeing activities or exercises to folk that just don't need it. Now there is a stretch because sometimes you don't know what you need,
Sure.
and so there is almost an SME element to recognizing, using data and so on to sort of drive an agenda and bring people on that journey with you. But equally, you've got to listen really hard around what's needed and tailor what you're doing to be relevant. And in as many forms as possible. We're not a digital first business. We'd love to be, but we're not. The reality is our colleagues don't really interact with us digitally, certainly not as much as we'd like. The vast majority of our workforce don't have an email address in which we can readily push communication to. So it's about engaging relevant, simple materials, exercises, and we can chat over a couple of examples where we've kind of had a bit of a play in the last few years around what works and what doesn't, and we've learned lessons, and we're now in the place of, okay, so that worked, how do we make it better? That didn't work, what are the lessons that we've learned? Do we either go again slightly differently, or do actually we just rest it. It's fine. It didn't work. We need to do something different.
Yeah, that's come out. A number of people we spoke to is this idea of experimentation,
Yeah.
and you've got to try things out.
It has,
You just don't know, right? You can plan these things till the cows come home in a meeting room somewhere, but until you get that out to the front line and start trying it with people, you don't know what the feedback will be.
No, and you can listen, and you can have academically you can think, well, this should work, but until it hits the front line, you just don't know what the reaction is. And we've been really surprised by a few things we've done that have gone really, really well.
You got the examples?
So we did, and absolutely. So last year we did something called the Great First Bus Expedition, which was fundamentally a steps exercise where we invited colleagues across the business to join us on a steps campaign over 2 weeks. And the target we set was 5 million steps.
Okay.
And that was very specific. It was the distance between, if you were to walk between all our depots. Now we didn't actually test that. It was on a map. So, but it was there or thereabouts 5 million plus or minus a million steps or so. Yeah. And we set this out there. It was an invitation. It wasn't mandated. It was about doing activity over and above your kind of baseline. So if you walk your dog every day, if you walk them twice because you were doing something, then submit your steps. And we made it as simple as possible. It was about submitting on a website we created either your steps or a distance, and we'd convert the distance into steps. And you could run it, you could walk it, you could roll it, you could swim it, you could crawl it, whatever. It was about the premise of the whole exercise was getting outside into nature and doing something above and beyond your baseline. So we set the target for 5 million steps. By day 2, we'd achieved 5 million steps.
No way.
We actually got to 39.8 million steps over 2 weeks as an exercise. And it completely blew our mind. You know, we had a totalizer on the website that was set for 5 million.
Yeah.
On day 3, we raised that to 10 million. And every day I was going back and saying, no, can we add some more to it? And eventually I think we gave up with the totalizer because we just couldn't keep pace. I'd say 39.8 million steps in total. And over 20% of our workforce uniquely submitted something into that. Wow. And we know that to be understated because people were doing it in groups as well. So it might be I took my team on a walk and I submitted one number, but actually there were 5 or 6 of us that went on that walk. And what it did is it captured something that at the core of it, Matt, the spirit was so simple. You know, we didn't overcomplicate it. We didn't link it to technology. Or you just submitted your steps. There was an interesting sort of tension around. Yeah, but what if somebody put in more than they'd actually done? Yeah. And I'm kind of cool with that. Yeah. You know, if they've gone out and if they've rounded it up. And instead of putting 9,000, they rounded it to 10,000 steps. So what? Yeah. And
wellbeing's not meant to be punitive either. But like, what if they've put 1,000 extra in? What are you going to do?
Exactly. And the reality is, they probably you can't run campaigns for the minority that may well do that. But I actually don't think that was in the spirit of what we were doing. I think the spirit was actually get out, enjoy, understand why being out in nature, why doing more exercise is good for you in all aspects of social well-being, of physical well-being, of mental well-being, emotional. It touches so many points. So that really surprised us because it galvanized the business. There was also a test in there actually as to whether folk would get involved in a national activity. Because what we find, again, in that sort of dispersed nature of our business, is you find that people are very loyal to their depot.
Absolutely.
When you talk about leadership, they don't recognise the executive as the leadership. Actually, it's their direct line.
Are you committed to this organisation? Well, I'm committed to that person.
Absolutely, that person there and that depot there. I am part of First Plymouth. That is my depot. Yeah. And so, actually, it was a test to see whether people would get behind something on a national level, and they really did. So we're going again this year. We're doing it for 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks this year. So it's going to be across July, 1st to the end of July. We're also this time putting in health kiosks into 16 of our sites, so people can track their measures across that period to again just start to. And what we're also doing is we're going to invite folk to create some membership, sponsorship behind it as well, for our national charity Macmillan, and again bringing in that social value, that shared value aspect to it. One thing I really liked about last year, and we're doing the same again this year, it was about the whole human as well. And that's, I think, something that that we're maturing in that well-being conversation beyond me and my to us and our, and family's part of that. So we created some scavenger hunt sheets.
Okay.
And there were some fantastic photos coming in of families in their downtime going out with their young children, and there were the 20 things: a tree, a post box, a lamp post, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And there was just some great photos coming in of families with their young children going on the scavenger hunt, doing the Great First Plus expedition. And at the end of it, you got a badge for everybody that participated. And again, that really caught, that sort of stepped on our maturity in that well-being conversation beyond that of just me and my, to us, our, the family, the whole unit, the whole human, which I think is part of that journey we're on. And then actually why I'm here today at the Excel is we're doing a conversation on preventative well-being. And how do you get ahead of the well-being curve? And this is one of those examples. If we can start to build really good habits with our people, that's a really good thing for our workforce. And ... it's good for business too.
Absolutely.
But the premise behind this is actually just get a healthier workforce.
How do you report on it? Like, so what data do you collect and report on this? Do you report at a board level? Is it an outcome that you aim towards, or
in terms of well-being total?
Yeah.
It's
difficult to measure, but
it is difficult to measure, but there are measures out there. And so, we do report at board level. We've got a governance around our EDI and wellbeing agenda that goes to board. And there's I guess some traditional measures you can look at, absence, short-term, long-term, attrition. You can look at exit interviews as to why people are leaving. You can look at the occupational health referrals and understand what are the trends in that and interventions that happen. We also talk about wellbeing in our engagement survey, which is a really nice hard measure of does First Bus take wellbeing importantly, yes or no, and it's on a Likert scale, but actually again that gives us a sense of are we seeing a shift in the attitude and sentiment towards well-being. But then I think there is also the more trickier stuff to measure, which is that anecdotal stuff. Are we seeing more people access our well-being materials? We run the first Wednesday of every month, we run a wellbeing webinar, which is with an industry expert talking about sleep or talking about diabetes health or talking about physical activity. Or it's a 1 hour webinar. They're called Wellbeing Wednesdays. Are people joining those live? Are we seeing more people walking towards them? Are people dragging them down in the recording on demand? So there's almost the other measures, almost the indirect stuff that actually tells a really interesting story. And I think in the wellbeing space, you have to combine data with the anecdotal in that sort of insightful place, or else I think you can go down the wrong avenue and get almost some false positives if you're not careful.
Got you. Yeah. Great. So I wanted to ask you a bit more about your career, because we were talking about before we started recording. You've got a degree in molecular biology. Is that your background? Like, start from the beginning. How did you start out, and what led you to the position that you're in now?
Gosh, I know we've only got 20 minutes, so let's do the abridged version. So I went to uni to get a degree. I went to uni to get a degree in something I knew I'd get a good degree in, and that's why I went into the biology space. I like science. I was pretty good at it at school. I was then offered a PhD when I left uni, but the thought of spending 4 years on one topic without any promise of getting anything at the end of it just wasn't my bag. And so I did the other thing that I was pretty good at, which was retail. The natural move from microbiology to retail. So I went and ran some shops, and I did a number of grad schemes in a couple of businesses. I spent the majority of my career at Waitrose as a branch manager. I then moved to a couple of other retailers, doing predominantly the shop stuff. So ran little shops, big shops, square shops, round shops. I closed shops, I opened shops. Kind of all the accolades you get in retail, from a branch operations perspective. I then got a taste for the central function, the head office role, as when I worked in customer experience, and I got that sense of that strategic opportunity beyond that of the box of a shop.
Yeah.
And so kind of got a flavour for what that felt like in a couple of retailers. And then I found myself working at Asda, where I left Asda to join my current role, and that was into my first pure HR role. And I had the real opportunity and pleasure of working across a number of different areas within the people team, whether it be talent or leadership capability, learning development, engagement.
So you applied directly for the HR role from the previous role at Waitrose? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Well, from Co-op actually. So I went from the Co-op then to Asda. And I had this opportunity to work across a number of roles and give me some really, really good grounding experience in HR. I then, and my latter role in Asda was in the EDI and wellbeing, engagement, digital communication space. And that's what really gave me the flavour. And that kind of happened accidentally.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't never ever have I sat in a career conversation and said, I want to work in EDI, wellbeing, colleague experience, relation space. That's never a conversation I've had. It was actually my line manager at the time that were creating this new role. It was head of EDI and wellbeing. And we really want you to do it. We can see the sort of transferability of what you've done in the past, that you are people-centric, that you have that lens of operations and understanding people and what they want and what really helps them. And so I found myself accidentally doing this role of head of EDI and wellbeing. And then, 2 years ago, almost to the day, got a phone call to say, do you want to come and join us at First Bus? And then so I went into First Bus as head of EDI and wellbeing, and then in November last year secured the role of director of colleague experience and relations.
Great.
Which covers EDI and wellbeing, but also then has people policy within there. It's got reward and compensation, and it's also got the ER and IR, the union relationship with the business as well.
Yeah. So the thing that's really interesting to me there, amongst other things, is just the squiggly nature of people's careers, and we've heard that from speaking to a lot of different people. And I wonder what your thoughts are on whether that's good or bad. Like, do you think that's good because it brings diversity of thought? Or do you think perhaps the well-being leadership role would benefit from having more of a consistent talent pipeline, that this is what I do at university and this is what I go through and all the rest of it? What do you think?
I think I recognise my bias in this, that the squiggly is my kind of gig. Yeah. And I was given some advice once, always say yes to every opportunity and work out how afterwards. And that's kind of how I've ran my career. It's interesting. I'm having conversations with my daughter, who's 14 at the moment, and around her GCSE options and then what she may want to do. I recognise in that conversation that I'm not very good at career planning. I don't know what I want to do. What I want to do is make a difference, and that for me is the overarching piece. And so I think I'll find myself doing anything that makes a difference, and if that's in wellbeing, great. If it changes and morphs to something different, that's okay, as long as I can make a difference for folk in the world. That's what's important to me. And so I'd probably come at it, Matt, from a sort of value set perspective, instead of the traditional, go and do a degree in wellbeing and then that qualifies you. I'm probably the least qualified person to do my job that I know. I don't have any professional HR experience or qualification or accreditation. But, and this is the values piece, what I do have is curiosity and drive and determination to make a difference. And I think that can get you a long way in your career. So I think for folk listening, I'd say, be you, do you, and if you want to do the traditional route, then great. If that's your desire, then crack on. If you want to try something different, go for it. Now, I also recognise that I've been really lucky in the opportunities that have been afforded to me. Sometimes experience on paper is really important to open up those opportunities to you. And so, go and find opportunities to enhance your CV, to demonstrate your commitment in this space, because sometimes you do need them to get over the hurdle, to get in front of somebody and be your authentic self and have a really good conversation. And sometimes when you're starting out, that can be quite difficult. But go and be you, find your route. Personally, love the squiggly. Love the squiggly
it's
career.
really good advice, and I tend to agree. My only thing on it is, and this isn't necessarily against what you've just said there. I've got this piece around, and one of the things that we're trying to do with Working Well is, and whether or not this needs doing, I'm not sure, but we're trying to legitimize the role because, like it or not, I have come across organisations where the chief of wellbeing or the director of wellbeing is not seen as quite as real as the director of finance or the director of IT or whatever it may be. I don't know. Maybe that's just my own inferiority complex coming through there. I'm not too sure
at all. I mean, it is pink and fluffy and well-being.
Yeah.
I think it's about grounding the importance of what we're doing here into reality and talking the right language of the boardroom. Because there is absolutely tangible difference that can be made to a workforce. It costs us £5,000 to recruit somebody. If somebody leaves because actually their well-being isn't being considered, there is a tangible value to replacing that individual. You want to save that money? Well, let's look after our folk better. Occupational health. How much money do we lose because people aren't cared for, or respected, or considered, or there's reasonable adjustments aren't being afforded to them that could help them be their best selves. So therefore, the only option they have in their own mind is to go off sick. I mean, think about that value. So I think if you can talk, and maybe this is my operations lens coming into this a little bit, but if you can find the right language to talk to, if you can convince the CFO in a business that they're actually investing in this, and it doesn't need to be expensive or big investment. The example I gave of the Steps Challenge cost me about £3,000. That was it.
Yes.
There was a bit of website development. There was some collateral. There were some badges. That was it. But the value that created was significant in building great habits, and actually demonstrating to the organization and everybody in it that we take this really seriously. This isn't just a phase or a fad that we're going through. My role doesn't include well-being in the title. I have one of my team members is an EDI and wellbeing partner. You don't need to, my team, you could argue, is 13,000 strong, every colleague in our business, because that they are all responsible. And if you can excite and motivate and engage them in going after this agenda together, then actually we just get this groundswell. So I do respect, and if I'm being really transparent, Matt, at some point in my career, I have probably thought, well-being, let's get more stock on the shelves. Well-being. But actually, I've kind of see it from a different lens now, and I think there is legitimate value in the role and focusing on well-being.
And I do as well, by the way.
That's helpful.
Saying that I don't think
helpful.
It's legitimate. I absolutely do not. And with the final 2 minutes, huge question for you. So you've mentioned that you've looked at well-being, but also EDI as you've gone through. You've kind of used those two phrases interchangeably. Where do you see them sitting in an organisation? Are they the same thing? Do they draw from the same budget? Do you need separate roles or the same role? Or what do you think? Does it matter?
Does it matter? I'm going to go with it. Does it matter? And let me say why. Because actually, all of these sorts of the EDI, wellbeing, engagement, I think they're all trying to do the same thing, which is ultimately have colleagues that are engaged and informed and cared for, respected and heard, that they have this sense of belonging, this magical space where actually they can just show up and be their great true selves. And actually all of these things are doing the same thing. They're all so does it matter? Actually, EDI, I think EDI and wellbeing are interchangeable. As I've said, one of my team is the EDI and wellbeing partner. I think you can distinctly delineate between the two at times, but actually they're trying to do the same thing. And we know that there is lots of synergy and crossover between them. We know that the LGBTQIA plus community inherently have are more vulnerable to the wellbeing pressures in the workplace and in society. So the two crossover is one example there. So I think if you are putting a focus into something, then it's helpful to separate, so you can focus. You can give a focal point to folk in the business, but actually the two for me, as well as engagement, as well as communications, actually are all trying to do the same thing, and therefore how that shows up, I don't think really matters. I think measure the outputs, and not necessarily the input of how you get there.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good answer. Yeah.
God, that was the exam.
I mean, it was wrong, but
it sounded all right, didn't it?
Yeah, sounded great. Right then, so just about out of time. Was there anything else that you desperately wanted to get off your chest that I have not managed to extract from you during this 20-minute podcast?
I think for me, it's the whole human. It's about how can we be more preventative, and not be reactive in the wellbeing space. And it's that wellbeing doesn't need to cost lots of money. So if there's folk listening that think, oh, that all sounds great, but I'm going to need millions to be able to do that, you really don't. Actually, just saying thank you to somebody for a job well done is an incredible boost to emotional and mental wellbeing. Just identifying simple interventions that can inspire people to behave or do something slightly differently that doesn't cost money to do. A comms campaign doesn't really cost a lot of money, but actually can inspire to point people towards webinars, to podcasts like this. Doesn't cost a lot of money, but can really make a difference. So I think, and there are things that cost money. I've introduced a cashback benefit to all our colleagues for their healthcare essentials. That costs quite a bit of money to do. So there is stuff that costs money, but it doesn't need to. And I think use resources like Working Well, that can inspire you to go and try stuff. Have a bit of trial and error, see what works, see what doesn't, see what colleagues walk towards, see what colleagues just don't interact with. We put some yoga sessions into depots. Nobody turned up. They were not interested in it. Engaged in the why, but not interested. We got it wrong. That's okay. Actually, we've learned and we understand why, and we will put them back in again, but probably not next month. It'll be a while before we do that because we recognise that actually we misplaced that, and that's okay. So I just go and have a play with it and enjoy it and enjoy making a difference.
Yeah, I like that phrase. Play.
Can I play with it?
Good. Yeah. Ace, thank you so much. Where can people find you if you want them to find you?
LinkedIn. Yeah. Gareth Hind. There's a picture of me on a bus. Yeah. In a high vis vest. Go find me. I'd love to. You reach out, please do. I love these conversations. Yeah. I love solving problems as well. So if there's something that you've tried and it's not working, I'd love to have a conversation just to say sort of why and unpick that a little bit and maybe find a different way through to the solution you're trying to get to.
Ace, perfect.
Thanks very much, Matt.
Thanks so much.
Lovely.
Amazing.